Welcome to a special Euro 24 edition of Moments That Could Have Changed Football Forever. I'm joined today with my fellow author and top coach 3v3 guru, Peter Prickett. We have Kevin Graham, international manager, coached in Guernsey, and he's joining us from sunny Spain. And it's a great pleasure to have Tony Mee, ex-Royal Signals, ex-Academy coach, all-round top man on the show. So we're going to kick off with the question that I saw Guillaume Ballard quote this morning. And he said, what if England carry on playing like they have and win it? Pete?
So I'm going to kick it off, but there we're saying I have read the various articles and tweets that say that Southgate has and his team have got a Bible on how to win an international tournament, and front and center of that is Portugal 2016, who I'm sure we probably can all remember won one game during normal time through the whole tournament and came out as champions. And with international football and international tournaments, you don't have to win games. You just have to make sure you don't lose them. And that is exactly how it looks like England are playing.
Are you thinking that way then, Kev?
It's looking increasingly like that, isn't it, gents? Look, I think yesterday's performance was a little bit better.
Yeah.
And it won't take that much more improvement to start to take a step back when you look at the journey they've been on and realise that it's a lot better now than it was before. And it's also improving at the right time and against the right quality of opposition. So I think the other question is, like, you start to kind of analyse Southgate as a coach on different criteria. The further deeper you go in the competition, you start to think about the psychosocial stuff, you know, how he keeps the team together despite all the issues and all the criticism they face. And you also start to focus on penalties and how good a job from a management and coaching position it looks like he's done with England's penalty takers after yesterday's almost flawless performance. So yeah, I think you might be onto something with the Portugal model there, Pete.
And where are you sitting on it, Tom?
I think your first statement is a really good one to make, but because the majority of us would say we need to win something. We've got to stop the 30 years of hurt, 40 years of hurt, 50 years of hurt, and actually win something. And whilst it might not be thrilling to watch, you know, I'll take it personally, and I'm still happy to criticise the style of play and how it's not, it doesn't make great viewing. But the bottom line is, as Pete said, you know, we're still in the tournament, and there's a lot of teams that are on the way home or have been home and they're on the beach a week ago. Yeah.
It's what I said. I think, you know, big picture, we all want them to play, you know, open and attractive football. You know, Holland 74, Brazil 1970, any team you like. But little picture is win this game, isn't it? Win this game, win the next game, win it. You know, where I watched it last night, we were leaping around, I'll tell you, when Trent's penalty went in. It would have such an impact on our world, wouldn't it? On the coaching world, I think, if they won it.
Yeah. Go on, Pete.
Is it a positive impact or a negative impact, though? There's the question. So we start coming down to what's more important, winning or how you win. So let's take Greece when they won the Euros. I think there are plenty of people who can make an argument that was one of the worst things to happen to Greek football and the bigger picture, because winning develops or provides a model that people then start to copy. So with Greece winning the tournament in a very negative and defensive manner, Greek football shifted towards that as this is the way that we win. And there are some people who've even made the argument that 1966 was really damaging to English football because we stopped playing with a national identity of wide players, exciting dribblers, and it became a lot more compact. So if England win the tournament playing in this style, is there a risk that it long term or medium term at least might do more harm to coaching and what we see in grassroots football and the people who are most likely to be copyists than good?
I don't believe that it will have that effect, because I think that people, certainly in our country, we would rather coach like the club teams play rather than the national team play. And they're two completely different things. It's like the argument with Foden at the moment, with Foden in the England side and Foden in the City side. You know, England can't play like Man City for Foden because they don't have the other type of players that City have around him. So it's a completely different thing. I think that more people would rather coach like the teams that they see on TV week in, week out, rather than the team that they see competing in a tournament every 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because me and Peter chatted about it before. If you sit there and think, what is the highest standard of football that we see now? It used to be the World Cup. Well, it isn't anymore, is it? It's the Champions League. You know, we've all sat there. I've sat there all through this tournament, and especially with the England matches, with my sons going, if this was City now, we'd be beating these about 3-0. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, the Champions League semi-finals and finals are the highest. So I think the point you made there, Tom, you'd hope that would, come out of it. But my point is, I think that we'd lose that 50 years of hurt, or how many long it is. That would be the monkey off everybody's backs, and that could only be a positive thing, I think, in the big picture stuff. All the coaching and the way that we play, it'd be brilliant, if people ignored the defensiveness of what's happening now. But to get that monkey off our back, I think it'd be brilliant.
There's a great article, I think, in the Guardian today. I think his name's Jonathan Liu, the author and the journo who did it, and he's basically saying that the rules don't really apply here. Like, there are no rules for this. If you're trying to understand this, stop trying to understand it. Just enjoy it. Just accept that there's a randomness to how tournaments progress and how this tournament's progressing. Yeah. And to that end, that I don't see that it would be a major issue in terms of legacy moving forward. I think there was a time when everyone watched the game and only the game and didn't look at anything else, didn't look at all of the, we're served up with football 365 days a year, aren't we, nowadays? And the World Cup and the Euros, they're big, but they're only big when they get to a certain point. They used to be much bigger, much more of a focus. So, to Tony Mee's point, that there's only one Tony on here. I don't need to repeat your surname. But to Tony's point, you don't need to be too concerned, in my opinion, about that, because, like, as you say, they've got a huge kind of offering of fantastic Premier League, Championship, foreign football. YouTube is full of reference points that coaches can look to, and so I don't think that's so much of an issue. But I do think that if you look at, there's an interesting question around Gareth Southgate in his earlier life, post playing, was instrumental in the rollout of the DNA project from 2014 onwards to 16, 17, 18. And that produced phenomenal technical players. We talked about ball mastery. We talked about 1v1 skills. We talked about all of the fantastic kind of technical aspects of the game that we were trying to develop from the old 4-4-2 English Bulldog spirit. And the irony, as someone pointed out to me on Twitter today, Matt Tulson, I think, was that Gareth is actually doing more to harm that legacy than anyone, and yet he was the one who implemented it.
Yeah. Well, it's a really good point. I was on the youth modules, the really early youth modules, and I was asking questions. And my league, because I was on there, was one of the first to start progressive leagues to start playing the small-sided games. And so they asked me to go round with Gareth and the lad Nick Levitt from the FA. And we went round to the county FAs selling it in, and there's a famous story that they always tell about going to Durham. And some of the grassroots lads coming at Nick Levitt with a bat, because they really, really didn't want to do it, And that's been my point when I've been defending Gareth on social media, saying, no, he was in from the start. He understands where we're going with this. But I have to tell you, in added time against Slovakia, I was ready to join the throng. I was. What are you doing? This isn't what we signed up for. It wasn't, was it? That was probably the longest bit of added time I've sat through for a long while, because it just. I said to Pete, I thought of everyone on the FF. I thought of all the lads I grew up coaching with. Lads, your age, Tony, and especially. Your age, Kev, where, you've got that hope of, right, this is it. We're going to do something. And I predicted we'd do something in 22, 24, 26. And it was like, oh, we're not. And it was just dreadful, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think the thing with Gareth is, I genuinely, I was talking to my lads about it last night, because the minute we equalised last night, my eldest lad went, tell them all to get back now. And I genuinely, you go, surely he can't. Surely he can't. Yeah. That must just be something that's happening on the pitch,
I don't know, but I was really disappointed. Apart from the first 20 minutes of the first game, which I thought we really dominated, I thought that was the best we've played in the tournament so far. But as soon as we went 1-0 up, it just seemed to be like the default option. Right now, we're going to go and sit in a low block.
Yeah.
And look, we're all English. We don't want to see England playing in a low block against anybody, really. We want to see them higher up the pitch, being a bit more proactive. And that's kind of carried itself on through the tournament up until I've just watched the game again while I was on my bike this morning, and I missed the first half last night because I was travelling to a reunion. So I sat and watched the first half, and I thought we were decent again, but we were only decent on one half of the, and that's the biggest thing. And it was a disappointment to me as soon as I saw the squad announcement that we do have some left-sided players. Naturally left-sided players, but he hasn't used them. And as good as Saka's been, and I do think he's probably been our most productive, forward-thinking player in the games that we've played so far, that we're in danger of becoming a little bit predictable. And when Shaw finally made his long-awaited appearance yesterday, it gave us a bit more balance. It gave us a different threat from the other side of the pitch. So yeah, maybe he's coming back into it at the right time, and they'll tweak things for the semi-final. I hope, but I don't believe that'll happen. I think he'll go with the same side that started last night. But we can but hope.
We're not gonna see him change now radically. I mean, the word radical change is radical. Amends to the team sheet. Yesterday we're doing the rounds, Sky Sports News and what have you, but the reality was that it was a slight reshuffle. It was that they did match them up, pretty much man for man, going three at the back and pushing, the wide players further up the pitch, and we played with that box in the middle of the pitch, which meant that we had a little bit more support. Short passing lines were there, I thought I wouldn't say abundance, but a lot more evident than they were in previous games. So, but he's not going to, as you say, he's not going to deviate from that massively, is he? Because he just isn't. Like, I continually hope that he's going to just all of a sudden switch it up, just completely surprise the opponents, the whole world, and literally roll out the red carpet, and we go and tear a team a new one. And we can do that with the players that we've got. And all you needed to do was see the difference between conceding a goal, or the difference that conceding a goal made and 3 substitutions made, to the whole temperature of the game, the whole impetus that was behind England's attacking play. Shaw making runs overlapping. There was lines of defenders not knowing whether to go wide or whether to stay in tight and keep that compact shape that they'd had previously. And that's we all know that that's there, but it ain't going to change. At least not until someone's got a gun to his head. And I think we all have to accept that, don't we?
Yeah. So if you're playing the role, Pete, of the Gareth Southgate supporter, the coaching fraternity was saying, why is he always reactive? You know, as Kev's just said there, you know, the minute we went one down, cavalry came on, we started to look quite good again. Why is he always reactive and not proactive, would you say?
Well, at 0-0, you're not going out, are you? That's the difference. At 1-0 down, you're going out of a tournament. At 0-0, you're not going out. You're still in the game. You're still going to get an opportunity. So I think that's why he's more reactive. He's happy to sit in games because it gives you a chance at some point.
So with Kev's point, do you think he might change things up, or do you think he's always going to, you know, start off with his nice, steady, compact? Do you think it's always going to be that, or do you think if we got to the final, they would, as Kev says, roll out the red carpet and haul someone away?
No, I don't think so. Not at all. I think I was in a coaching meeting not that long ago, and we were discussing what we wanted our club philosophy to be, and I was certainly talking about being willing to risk losing a game in order to go and win it. And that is absolutely not what Southgate and this England team are about. They are not prepared to risk losing the game to try and win the game. They might risk losing the game 2-0 instead of losing the game 1-0, but I don't think they're going to at all risk it, because then with tournament football, you get to play another game at the end, even if it's a draw. You get to play the penalty game. So you get 2 chances at winning it without actually going at the opponents, which is what makes tournament football and knockout football so different to league football. The league football has changed now, especially the Premier League. Maybe at the top of the Liga, it's quite similar in a way, where you've got to go and win those games. Every game you don't win, the other team, City are going to catch you, Liverpool are going to catch you, Barcelona are going to catch you. So it's changed. But in knockout football, different story.
And there's an interesting point made earlier. Do you think, on the back of what you've just said there, and what we saw last night from those 5 penalties, that they've gone, we're all right, penalties. Penalties, we're good. We'll take penalties. Tom's having a disco. I was astonished with the penalties. Were you confident? We've got that history behind us of not being great at penalties, but those lads that stepped up there. I mean, Cole Palmer took his penalty as though he was like backing with and showed his mates, didn't he? It was amazing.
I have to say, I find it quite. I was exactly the same as you were, Pete. So, I'm 46 years old. The vast majority of my life has been kind of punctuated by failures, in major tournaments, often at the penalty spot. So you never, if you're our age, you never go into those thinking that we're favourites here. You might go and feel a little bit more comfortable than you did, back in the Pierce, Waddle, whatever era, and Shilton in goal. But it still feels like it's a lottery. You still feel like you're on the back foot. What I find really strange, though, gents, is our set pieces in this tournament have been absolutely diabolical.
Yeah,
diabolical in every sense. The execution, the movement, the planning, the variation, anything that you would judge set pieces on, you would say England score very, very low on them in terms of attacking set pieces. And yet we seem to have prepared to within an inch of our lives for every eventuality from the penalty spot. And I find that really quite strange, but also a reflection that, you know, this coaching team probably flattered to deceive in the early days and is now not delivering in certain areas. Whether England wins or not, we could be dispassionate about this. We can look at it from a football perspective and just analyse the coaching aspects and the technical aspects of the game. And we can look at the way it makes everyone feel and what we want. And they're two different things. And I think Gareth Southgate is a phenomenal human being. He seems to be a very, very nice man. He's been a great role model. And there are lots of, like I say, psychosocial things that I think he gets right. But as a coach, I think there is just one example, and there are so many more that we could go into in terms of how he sets the team up, the way he doesn't have a plan B or doesn't seem to be able to iterate plan A and just adjust it, you know, to take into consideration the strengths of his players. There's so many other aspects that I could tear Gareth Southgate a new one based on the way I see it. Does that mean that's the truth? That's the right way of looking at it? Absolutely not, just my opinion. But I use the set pieces as one example where I think he's missing huge tricks, to be honest, in this tournament, and has been for a while.
You agree with that, Tom?
Yeah, I watched some of the set pieces coming in into the box from wide positions, particularly Foden's delivery, which is normally spot on. A lot of it's getting overhit. Trent in the early games overhitting set pieces. Whether you can't really blame Southgate for that. I suppose that's individual technique, that's individual ability. And sort of moving off topic slightly and maybe tackling an elephant that may be in the England dressing room, I also think that Kane's causing us more problems than he's solving.
I guess I must admit, to line up right behind you on that one. I think he's been, well, the rumour is he's injured, isn't it, still? That's the rumour. And if you look at his performances and he's carrying a back injury, that sort of fits. Whereas there was a great piece, wasn't there, on the BBC website where Ivan said Ivan Toney is angry at being left out, you know, and obviously they were after clicks. But if he's seeing Harry stagger around training and still getting in the starting 11, you could understand that, couldn't you? Because he looks to me clearly hugely limited in his movement. He does.
Yeah, but having said that, Pete, there's been at least, again, I was sat on the bike watching it this morning. At one point, he's defending, I think it was the second half, he's defending on our 18-yard line, and it's great, he wins the tackle, but Foden and Bellingham are higher up the pitch than he is. What is he doing anywhere near our 18-yard line?
With that, yeah.
He then took the ball back towards the goal line, so he became the deepest player on the pitch. Yeah. Now, if I had a bad back, I wouldn't be running from the halfway line to the other end of our pitch. I'd be staying up there and try to be effective in short, powerful bursts.
My voice went very high when he took it backwards. When he won it, he won it, and you go, oh, good lad. And then he started going back towards our goal, and I think it was like, what are you doing?
Guys, I probably shouldn't speak about Harry Kane, seriously, because I may well breach all of the rules of this podcast.
No swearing rule.
Yeah, seriously. It's absolutely not good enough. It's not acceptable. And I don't, by the way, I don't know, but I don't subscribe to the theory that he's injured. Because if he's injured now, he was injured in 2016 against Iceland, or he was injured in 2021 against the Czech Republic, or Scotland, or whoever else he played, other than Macedonia, Liechtenstein, and any other giant in world football where he seems to score a hatful of goals and everyone says everything's okay. His contribution in the game, if you do a player cam, and I've banged on about this, and I'm not going to keep banging on about it, because I realise that it doesn't make any difference. But if you do a player cam on Harry Kane, when let's say when a ball travels from the goalkeeper into his area because it's the only way out for Jordan Pickford, they've pressed too high, we're under pressure, he needs to release the ball, release some pressure by sticking the ball in the channel. Harry Kane should be either sticking his backside into the centre half, reading the flight of the ball, travelling across and winning the ball, even just doing anything to put the centre half off. And I would say 9 out of 10 balls, it's the centre half's got a cigar out. When he does go towards the ball and does get something on it, it's off his shin, and it's going to someone else. Now, if we go back 30 years, managers would not stand for a centre forward who could not make the ball stick. One of the most simple, basic. One of his strengths, by the way, back to goal. Harry Kane has to be viewed as someone who is good at holding centre halves off. He's got good strength. He's got physical presence. He's got great technique. He used to be able to receive the ball, set, check, and get off and spin out behind. And he can't do the most simple things now. And on top of that, I don't know if you recall the moment yesterday where Mainu sort of opened his body and let the ball roll through, and literally took 3 players out of the game. He drives over the halfway line, and you've got a couple of wide players a little bit too far away, and Harry Kane 10 yards from him. And Harry Kane is towing a caravan again, like he's been since 2016, and he's going nowhere with it. The 2 centre halves are like, well, both of us can step to Manu here, because we don't need to worry about him, because he's trying, but he's not getting anywhere near the ball. He's not even making a movement across. He's not checking off. He's not taking their eye line anywhere. These are simple things that I would expect a 16-year-old playing in cadete football here in Spain to be able to do. And one of the greatest players in the world, and literally the player who, England looks to, Southgate looks to. I could go on and on about this, but it's been so long that this has been happening, and I genuinely think the whole footballing world, probably including us at times, have been duped a little bit by the way Southgate has talked about Kane and his influence, the way that he scored goals in the Premier League, and by the way, that's a different game. When he was playing for Tottenham on the counter-attack, balls being played in behind centre halves who are going back towards their own goal, him sweeping the ball in, or playing with 2 up top with Son. Son was taking players away, creating space for Kane. This is not that type of team. Not in a million years. It's pedestrian, it's slow possession, and he is one of the biggest problems if you're going to play that football. What should we be doing? It's an obvious statement to make. A more mobile player who's willing to work away from the ball is going to create more space for the great players that we've got in front of him.
Yeah. You coming in for the defence there, Pete, or are you joining the pylon?
Harry Kane is, in my opinion, a very difficult topic for this England team, because it's very easy to point at his goal-scoring record in international football. Now, as has been pointed out, a lot of those goals have been against weaker opposition. But then who in international football with a prolific record can you not say that about? And he has scored goals in big games, but he's also missed big chances in big games. But I do think that it is the way that he plays and the way he is used. It's not necessarily a Harry Kane problem in that regard. It's just that you mentioned Son, and I think that's really relevant, because when we played with 2 strikers, when Tony came on and they actually played together, both players look better and England looks slightly better. But are England going to play with 2 up front? No, they're not. Are they going to accept that the best way to use their best goal scorer is in a front 2? Probably not, because they'll look at it and go, well, he scored goals playing up front on his own, but it's all relative to the opposition. So I don't know that the solution is to take him out of the team, but the solution might be to actually play another striker alongside him. But we're going back through this, that we looked better against Slovakia when we were putting balls in the box. We're looking better when we have players on the correct side, the right-footed player out on the right, the left player out on the left, putting balls in the box. And I've said, is that the real England DNA, to have 2 wide players who can cross the ball and 2 strikers in there? And then you say that and you go, well, in that case, should have just kept Sam Allardyce.
What if Brian Clough had managed England?
What if Ronaldo and Messi had played together?
What if Pep Guardiola managed in League 2?
These are just some of the things discussed in a brand new book, Moments that could have changed football forever. Every what-if moment in the book has been chosen to spark debate. Buy your copy now online at Amazon or Waterstones.
And part of the reason Sam Allardyce was replaced by Gareth Southgate, not why he was removed from the role, but part of the reason that it was Southgate who was eventually given it, was because of this England DNA, which is full of some very forward-thinking, modern football ways of being and playing and producing, but it is really just directing us in this homogenous manner where national teams and international football and the leagues are all losing their own identity, because they all start at the top level. It all starts to become the same, rather than a true DNA that would play to the historic strengths of English football. And you know, wide players who could put the ball in the box, whether that is a cross or whether that is a higher percentage cutback, because Stanley Matthews was cutting the ball back from the byline for finishes in the 40s and 50s. Yeah, that's the thing to think about. Is Southgate going to play two up front? Is he going to start the next game with two up top? Of course he's not, because you lose your midfield numbers, and again, that's a way that you might lose the game.
I think that's a really interesting point about the two up top, because it's only a little, for me, it's only a little tweak from last night. You know, so last night it looked like 3-4-3. There's a little tweak to make it 3-5-2, and you're going, oh yeah, I could go with that. You know, I could go with the 3-5-2.
Does that work with Trippier on the left and Saka on the right?
No, it doesn't. It works with Saka on the left and Trent on the right. That's what I do. I'll come on that in a bit, but that's. I think the two. One of the things that I was talking about last night with my sons was, what has Ollie Watkins done? Because in his whatever he had half an hour, and I thought, oh, you know, what you were saying, Kev, mobile, got behind, ran in behind, you know, had a decent chance, was unlucky, you know, hit the keeper, could have gone through the keeper's legs, nearly did, and then he's clearly gone, right, you sit over there.
Well, it gives you a chance to play a ball, a weighted pass through in behind or down the side of the defenders. And watching the Germany-Spain game the other night, I saw about 5 of those in the space of about 10 minutes in that first half, which was wonderful, by the way. What a game of football that was, particularly the first half on Friday, between two fantastic teams. And Spain, to be honest, are playing wonderful, wonderful football. But that Watkins came on, you're right, and literally a minute. His movement away gave our great technical players the opportunity to pass. You know, in their peripheral vision, they see another option now. They don't just see this one or that one. They now see this one, that one, or that one. And that makes a huge difference to their mentality and the defensive line in terms of their willingness to come and press the ball and put you under pressure. Go on, Tony, I think I can cut you off there.
No, I was just going to say, you know, with regard to Watkins, and then when Pete said go sit over there in the corner, he's sitting over there in the corner next to Anthony Gordon.
Yeah.
You know, again, someone who's played off the left-hand side and could have given us the balance that we've needed from quite early on in the tournament. But Trippier being that more defensive-minded person kind of goes back to, I suppose, Southgate's own way of thinking as a defensive first type of manager.
Yeah, I think one of the things for me, from and going all the way back to the squad, the one thing that I thought was criminal was taking Shaw half fit and no one else. So if you forget all the tactics and everything we talked about so far, just that was like, what are you doing? You know, totally. Is Chilwell is he not fit? Is he so out of favour that he couldn't have taken him? You know, or, you know, some lad out of the under-21s, anyone that can play, left back.
Tariq Mitchell's had a good season at Palace.
That's right.
Slot him in.
There's
plenty of options.
Even Aaron Cresswell, even someone who he's tiny, he's played at a very high level consistently for West Ham now for 3, 4, 5 years. someone who can receive the ball and open their body,
exactly.
To start off with, just gives you that ball around the side. It literally, you're cutting off passing lines by making that decision, and that was criminal.
But it's the thing against Slovakia. The minute he put Saka on the left-hand side, and he, like you say, it all started to move. There wasn't that Trippier having to think, right, where am I receiving it? I can't turn there now because that's blocked off. I'll give it back to Stones. All that changed just because Saka could move with it.
15 degrees, 15, 20 degrees that way.
Just that.
It's incredible.
Just that one little move. I mean, one of the things I said last night was, could anyone tell me what position Eze was playing when he came on?
I was thinking about that before this, actually. I promise you, I did try to do a bit of prep for this, and I was thinking exactly the same thing. And he was in inverted kind of wing back, wasn't he? Really, I suppose, for want of a better expression.
Well, at one point he was stood like 10 yards from the right-hand touchline. What are you going? Where's he asked him to play?
Yeah.
And as I think you put on social media, the minute he started to move inside, he created space, he ran with it, he did all sorts. Where you're going, oh hello, it's just. I just felt, to come back to the defensive side of it in transition. Where is he? Where is he now? What's his job now? But it was fun.
Let's just like unwind what we've just said there a little bit though, and probably go a little bit pro Southgate, maybe to steal your thunder, PP. But we did look better defensively yesterday. In my opinion, we looked more organised. The press was more organised, with the distances between, not only the defensive distances but also the attacking distances meant that when we won the ball, I thought we retained the possession with a little bit less panic. So I do think that if you look at the defensive side of things, you've got to give him a little bit of credit and say Trippier contributed very little to the game, but he also shored up that side of the pitch largely. And it's a bit like saying a good referee, you don't notice it. It's a bit like that's what Trippier did for me yesterday in that England team, was literally just give us that stability by playing that little bit higher up the pitch to not let them out, allow the whole team to get a bit further up the pitch. And I think that was a deliberate plan. So tactically, I'm clutching at straws a little bit, but I do think that was an improvement.
Well, we've seen consistently the more defensive option being taken when it comes to selection. That's why Trippier plays left back for England. Doesn't play left back for his club. As worth pointing that out. I don't remember seeing him play left back for his club. The only place I can remember him playing on the left is for England, and it's also why Kyle Walker is playing right back. Even though, the one moment that sticks out for me in the game was that ball, when the ball was played into him and he's just trying to play a soft little pass inside and he balloons it right up in the air. And I'm thinking, that's what he's got in his locker, unfortunately. But he is selected because he's defensively pretty solid. As in, I know there's the occasional mistake in him, but as he's got older, those have become slightly lesser. And I'm saying it cautiously because I know the moment I say that is when he puts one in his own net in the semi-final. I know that, but I'm being very cautious. And of course, we've got his defensive recovery speed, which helps with that not wanting to be counter-attacked. And that takes me slightly back to, you mentioned, Kev, the box that England are using. It's not a box. It's more of a 6-man rectangle that's very, very wide. That's just sitting there, and it just does. Yes, it keeps the ball in a very, very simple, very safe way. It's very hard for the opposition to easily counter-attack it, but boy, does it hurt the build-up. Actually progressive build-up, opening out to play wide on the build-up, creating passing lanes where they're actually cutting off their own passing lanes by having such a flat rectangle across the middle of the pitch, and they've got no players to hit further forward. It allows you to control the game. It doesn't let you get played through, but all of these things about them not being great to watch are absolutely connected to how they are positioning themselves in the mid-pitch build-up phase.
I do think yesterday was an improvement. I think what you just described there is what I've seen almost all the way through the tournament.
Yeah.
But yesterday was slightly different because when you're playing three at the back, you don't have it quite as you described it there. In as much as you've got the two of them start a little bit higher and wider, you've got the base, and then for me you had Foden and Bellingham in front, and they don't form a conventional box that many times, as we know. It's a fluid thing and formation. But what it did do was give the ball into Foden, gave him at least one extra short pass to be able to pop the ball off like he gets at City. And that's where you start to see Foden come alive. When he's getting touch of the ball and they're continually recycling the ball quickly through the pitch, that enabled us to attack just a little bit higher up the pitch. I go back to what I said before. These are very small improvements from a very low base. England were poor and very poor in comparison to Premiership teams at this type of attribute of the game or side of the game. But I do think there was an improvement there, Pete. Just to slightly disagree with what you said there in terms of I see a slight progression towards it.
Yeah, but I mean, at times, because of the back three, you did get more of a diamond with Declan Rice sort of at the top of that. But even with that, you did see Bellingham and Foden slip into the corners of that, if you want. Maybe a bit more than you would like. Yeah, but of course, at times, you're going to need it.
I'll tell you what I thought was interesting last night. When Shaw came on, you go, he's going to play left wing back. And he didn't, did he? He played the left-hand side of the back three. Yeah. And I always remember 40 years ago now, 30 years ago, 1993, maths, 30 years ago, I did my FA prelim. And they were coaching a back three, and they were saying Don Howe always coached it with a centre-half and two full-backs, a back three. It wasn't like two centre-halves and a sweeper. And I thought, wow, is that because it was Walker, Stones, and Shaw was the back three.
Well, that's Terry Venables in 1996. I think I've just cut you off there, Kev. Yeah.
No, you're right. Yeah, like mine.
Yes.
But the interesting thing on that, sorry, Tony. The interesting thing on that was, and to reference a point that I know is a bugbear of yours. Shaw actually showed everyone how to defend when he came on as well in that moment. So the ball was crossed in, and he's got his man. You can see the ball. His body's in the right position, and he attacked the ball in a couple of really key moments, which you might not always see Kyle Walker do, as Tony was probably going to say.
Yeah, I mean, the first point I was going to make was really about how the Venables thing that Pete just mentioned. It wasn't Venables. It's Bobby Robson who stumbled across a successful back three, which changed the tournament. Maybe Southgate's going to have that little bit of luck and take us one step further. Kev's point, which he knows that I absolutely hate, if Kyle Walker had done his job properly as a fullback or a part of that back three yesterday, we wouldn't have conceded a goal and gone behind. I think it's really, really poor defending from somebody who ought to know better. In that his positioning in that situation when the ball's coming in from the opposite side should be in line with the back post, but with his hips open, somebody else mentioned 20% a minute ago. You've only got to open your hips 15-20%, and you can see all the danger in front of you and anybody coming from behind you. And he should not have let that. I can't remember the guy's name now. He shouldn't have let the Swiss player come across the front of him and get the tap in. It's criminal defending at the top level for me.
I've seen him do that. I've seen him do that a few times. You see. I've seen him do that for City, and it's what I think it's Pete's point from earlier. Kyle gets in the team basically because he's quick, isn't he? So everyone lauds Kyle when he's playing against Vinicius, and Vinicius can't run past him, and everyone goes, "Wow, he's a brilliant defender," but he's not. He's quick.
Well, I guess the question is he any better as a back post defender than Trent is? Maybe a little bit, but how big is the margin?
Good question.
I'd still say quite a bit. And I know he's the woman you love. I don't know. For me, Trent is. I would play him wing back. I wouldn't play him full-back. I play him wing back. I think he'd be perfect for playing wide in either a 4 or a 5 in midfield. I do. And I have to tell you, I will confess this last night. When you've got the first 4 penalties and you're going, who's the 5th? And when it was Trent, everyone in our room went, oh no. And then he took it again, a bit like Cole. It was as though he was a great penalty, perfect penalty. And and just to go back to the penalties, it is what is the Italy game, isn't it? When we could have won it. I think those lads out there now are not burdened with the penalties. Mentally, they're not. Yeah. And coming to your point, Kev, I think that's one of the things that Southgate's done brilliantly. That bit of unburdening them with the, all the baggage that the England team carries.
I mean, if you simplify it, that single action compared to being part of a unit that doesn't entirely know how to attack and feels every time the ball gets played sideways, it feels like the pressure builds on the team. And the expectation from outside the pitch builds on the team as well. So they must feel a burden when they're actually playing in open play, where footballers should go out there and enjoy it and to express themselves. I mean, that's what we talk about kids, right? They clearly don't have that in open play. But when they are in complete control of that one moment, because the penalty taker is always in control of the timing of the penalty, of where they place it or where they want to place it. It's probably easier for them. Let's be brutally honest about that. It's probably gone the other way around. It used to be, someone like, let's say take Gareth Southgate doing his job as a centre half. He'd do that all game long. He loved that, but you asked him to take a penalty. He's like a fish out of water. Well, Southgate and modern perception of how important it is to prepare properly for penalties has probably changed that as well.
Did you see that thing from Bielsa this morning that was on social media? I mean, we did it at uni, Marshall McLuhan and the Global Village, and you can buy 80% of all the goods in 80% of the places on earth. It's all homogenizing, and because every game you can watch every game in every league in every all around the world, you can see that happening with football. You can't you? You can see, it's almost like that first point that we made about all the teams starting to play the same way. Would these play the same way if England win it? But you can see people, the coaching fraternity going, picking things up. We're all magpies, and you can see that on a global scale, can't you? Well, we'll have a bit of that, and we'll try that.
Yeah. Well, just go on, Pete.
I was just going to this fairly quick one. Penalties wise, we all think about and talk about the spectre of 1990, even Euro 96. I'm pretty sure that the only person in that squad who was even close to born, and I have to check his birth date, would have been Kyle Walker. None of them would have been even near to having been born in Italian 90. So it's like...
It's the Italy one though, isn't it, Pete? It's the Italy one, I think.
Yes, but okay, that they lost that shootout, but they've also won other shootouts. Yeah. It's not like that, that team back then, they hadn't experienced their own experiences, 1990, 96, their own experiences of shootouts at international level were defeats.
Yeah.
Although it did turn it over against Spain, I should point that one out. But it's like that burden, those memories are not really there. The national psyche of penalty shootout defeat is not there, because for them, I think they have got a winning record at shootouts. They just lost one quite important one.
It's a good point. Their world isn't our world, and perhaps you need to get some younger guests on this show, you two.
I was going to say, to be fair, when you're talking about penalties and the Harry Kane pile on, if he scores that one against France, last year, that was the one, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
That was because for me in that game we got the momentum. We looked like we were going to win it. You get the penalty. It was like, here we go. This is it.
But I would also say, to hark back to the conversation we just had, if Kyle Walker had just opened his body another 15 degrees and stopped Ivan Perisic heading the ball, in the Croatia semi-final.
Yeah.
At the other end of the pitch, you've got another example, haven't you? So anyway.
Go on. Well, we've had a really good chat. Should we do what if you were Gareth Southgate picking the team then?
Oof.
What would you go with, Tom, next week?
Personally, I would go back three would probably be the back three that started last night. Mainly
because Gay out then, Tom.
I mean, him and Konza would be much of a muchness for me. I thought Konza played well last night.
He did.
So yeah, it would be much of a muchness. As I said, the midfield, I would potentially look, as I would have done from day one, to get a left-sided player on that left-hand side. But can you trust Gordon, for example, or Palmer to do the defensive side of that role? It gives you the balance, but it might not give you the defensive stability that Gareth would want. I don't think he'll change Kane purely. But I think Kane has now become the Portugal and Ronaldo issue for us.
Yeah.
And then the midfield.
But would you, Tony? Would you change it? You're Gareth Southgate. Would you change it? Would you drop Kane if it was you? You're in charge Wednesday.
I like Pete's point from earlier on. The thing about Kane, you can't argue with his goal scoring record. You know that at some point he's going to score. I would be working my nuts off in training with him. I'd put a rubber band on him that keeps him in the other half of the pitch.
Yeah, in the box.
I don't want him in our half of the pitch ever, other than to stay on side.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let him drop deeper than the bottom of the centre circle.
Yeah.
I want him high up the pitch, and if he can't do that job, or if he won't do that job, then somebody's going to bin him. It might not be Gareth.
I can't believe you're thinking of playing him, Tony.
But fortunately, I don't have to pick the team, Kev.
Go on then, Kev. You're picking it. Are you dropping him? You are, aren't you?
He wouldn't even be in the squad if Kev was picking it.
Of course I am. No, I agree with Tony. I play Konsa. I thought Konsa, because left sided, he's comfortable on his left foot, and I think that helped. I thought he played very well. I thought Mark Gay has been really good, but I would keep the same back three. I play Luke Shaw without a doubt. I would play Saka. I play Maino and Declan Rice, and what I would probably be looking to do is to tell Declan Rice to be probing a little bit on the left side to fill in, to allow Luke Shaw really to give him that free rein. If you're too high, you don't get that benefit of attacking him. But that's where I'd be looking for Rice to swing and to provide a little bit more cover on the counter from there. And then I would play Bellingham and Foden with Watkins up top. But what I will say is another slightly controversial one. I would be dragging Bellingham if he plays the same as he has done the last few games. After about an hour, and I'd be playing Palmer and Foden next to each other.
I must confess this one against Slovakia, and I told you in the longest period of added time, and I was thinking of all the hours I'd done coaching and all those lads, and the full 9 yards of what we're doing, and I was thinking about it, and I went, and look at him, Bellingham is supposed to be the best player in the world, and he's been absolutely good. What a goal!
It was one of those. He's very tired. You've got to look. Your eyes don't lie to you, right? When you see a player constantly arriving a little bit too late to press, constantly arriving a little bit too late to receive the ball, constantly looking like it's difficult for him to get back in, that you don't need a vest with a heart rate monitor on to tell you that the player looks like he's fatigued.
No.
There's starters and finishers in modern football for a reason, and Gareth Southgate doesn't seem to believe in them. Now, I would tell Bellingham, you lead this country. He's the leader of this team. There's no two ways about it.
No.
He is a rightful leader of this football team, and he should go out there and he should drive that team for 60 minutes, 65 minutes, run himself into the ground, and when he's done, bring on one of these fantastic young players we've got.
Yeah. Well, I'll have my go. I'm in charge. I've always liked the 3-5-2. I have, and I would play Saka wide on the left-hand side, and I'd play Trent wide on the right-hand side, so that you can have Rice, Bellingham, and Foden in the middle. I might stick with Harry, but I'd like to see Palmer up there with him. My worry, I love Palmer as a footballer. I love the way he plays, but he's absolutely useless without the ball. The minute someone's running at him, it's like, oh no.
Agreed.
So I would play him almost as a free roll up there. And one of the things I was going to ask you, lads, because I see it, luckily week in, week out at City, where you get De Bruyne and Foden and even Doku and they rotate. Now you haven't seen any of that rotation in the England side at all, have you? Like nil. Where someone will squat and go outside.
Yeah, Tony's bit. A couple of times Foden dropped in to pick the ball up. Bellingham and Rice bombed on a little bit. There were times yesterday where you start to see it, but I mean, it's like comparing to apples and pears.
It is. What's your team then, Pete?
Right. So I will say that given we've got to this stage going as we have, I think it would represent a very big risk to change anything. Because this is clearly the plan. The plan's got you to the semi-finals. Stick to the plan.
Well, he did start with a 4, didn't he? He started off with a back 4, so he has changed to a back 3. Yeah.
He's been forced to, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He was forced to. Otherwise, he wouldn't have. And also, the back 3 hasn't really represented much of a change. It was the same as playing with a back 4 stylistically, just with an extra central defender, really. And it, as we said, it let them get on the ball a little bit better in central midfield, but only fractionally. So big risk to really change things. But you asked if I was the manager. And if I'm the manager, we're not playing this kind of football in the first place. So we'll just start there. My lineup, partly based on what we've been doing in the tournament, we're not changing my goalkeeper, obviously. Back 3, Walker, Stones, Gahey. I think Gahey has played very well. The balance on that side is better, or was much, much better with Luke Shaw at left-sided centre-back, which I'd be tempted to play if I thought he could last the game, starting it. I'm not sure he can, so I'd probably be more looking to bring him on. Trent plays right wing back. Saka plays left wing back and takes one for the team to give us that balance. And as good as he was in the first half of the last game, and indeed for the whole of the last game, let's be realistic about it, how much threat he gave us, the lack of a left side with a natural ability to open out and play hurt us far more, and it would make it much less predictable having Saka on the left. I'm playing Rice and Bellingham in central midfield, and I'm starting Foden and Eze behind Kane. That's my team.
Ooh, yeah. Eze.
I do think Eze looked very, very good yesterday. Very bright, very composed, like nothing fazed him. But he just looks like he has that little, like Tony, you were saying before. His ability to change pace. To literally lure a defender in, show the ball, and then go. And he just takes players out of the game so quickly. I think he's a great player, incredible.
Going back to England DNA in a positive way, and a lot of the work that has happened in the last decade has been to develop players and help players who are exciting and capable dribblers and can lure people in and create space for others and then themselves. And I know Southgate has done it through desperation, but when we've got the best dribblers, the dribblers on the pitch, we've looked much, much better. We look much, much more threatening. So I would go, let's just get those dribblers on the pitch. Let's get them playing. Let's get them going. release them and let them play. And I know that's the big point of this whole podcast that we're doing here, is that the general feeling is that, yes, England are in a semi-final, but they haven't been allowed to play. The talent hasn't been allowed to flourish.
Well, let them play seems to be a great point to end the podcast. Let them play and let them win. Fantastic. Gents, thanks so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And look forward to listening to this back. Some brilliant points.
Cheers, Pete. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, gents. Enjoyed that.
Bye, guys.
What if the Munich air crash had never happened?
What if Michael Owen had stayed fit?
What if Ajax never sold?
These are just some of the things discussed in a brand new book, Moments that could have changed football forever. Every football fan has a what-if moment that they know would have brought their team glory if things had turned out differently. Every what-if moment in the book has been chosen to spark debate amongst football fans. Buy your copy now online at Amazon or Waterstones and let us know what's your favourite what-if moment in football history.